Welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and today I am joined by Justin Friedberg, who has been a Union fan since pretty much day one. How are you doing today, Justin?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great, and especially, the Union can have picked a better time to announce a brand new signing, so we will get into that in a little bit. But, Christmas came early for the Union fans.
Absolutely. I stumbled across the news and I, reached out to all my friends and, a few sources I have. And yeah, it was announced quicker than most people anticipated.
Yeah, definitely. And I have a friend. I talked about it with the Dupe brothers. His name is Jordan Floret. He just came back from Venezuela and he's writing a book on Venezuelan soccer and everything. And I'll go over his scouting report just like I did with the Dupe brothers, kind of gave you Union fans an insight on what we can expect from Jose Andres Martinez, who is the new signing. But first off, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, Justin, how you became a fan of Philadelphia Union and all that jazz?
It goes back a long time. I've grown up with soccer probably since the age of 5. My dad was a goalie in college and he played for 30-some years. My sister played travel soccer. I played travel soccer. And, early on, I just kind of grew to love soccer. I was a huge Manchester United fan. The class of 92, all those guys, Giggs, Scholesy, the Neville brothers, and Beckham. I fell in love with, how simple soccer was and how, some of these guys could make it look so easy. And yeah, I've played soccer since I was a kid. I still play it now. And yeah, I was a DC United fan growing up. When you were in, the Jersey area in the mid 2000s, you really didn't have much of a choice. It was either the Metro Stars at the time, no one, or you kind of supported DC United. And I gravitated towards DC kind of like an outsider's glance because I wasn't a true fan. But, it was Freddie Adu, Ben Olsen. It was kind of those days where you just kind of, the league was kind of in an early flux. And I fell in love with the way that, hey, this is American soccer. And, the U.S. team was starting to get better. And then all of a sudden the Union came around. And I figured, hey, here's a Philadelphia team. I can definitely get behind that. And I remember going to the first ever game at the Link against DC United with my parents. I remember because Joe Biden was in attendance and it made security that much more intense than it already is at the Link. And what a first game. I went, with the first 3 games that were at the Link. And in college, I started to follow along a bit more. I went to a few games here or there. And about 2016, I got season tickets with one of my best friends. And we've been in section 139 since.
Awesome. So you're right next to me. I'm in section 138. So definitely got to link up at least once the season kicks off. But I want to piggyback on what you said, Manchester United, because I'm a Manchester United fan too. And that was the glory days, the class of 92. And then here comes Ronaldo, Ruud Van Nistelrooy. We signed Wayne Rooney from Everton. And now things for Manchester United are looking down. And I'm not going to be negative and talk about them. Doing my old podcasts and everything. I spent too many negative times talking about Manchester United. So I'm not going to continue the trend here. But, when I first watched not Manchester United, soccer and MLS, I paid attention to David Beckham. He came over from Europe to go play for LA Galaxy. So I bought his jersey. Being a Manchester United fan, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I remember watching Beckham in the England national team squad. Then the rest is history. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't really have a squad, but I guess I'll just pay attention to LA Galaxy. But then after a couple games, I was like, yeah, this is way too slow pace for me, and I was used to watching European soccer, so I didn't give MLS a chance until 10 years later, and boy, can I say the league, has it ever changed, and it's been a good thing. For people that hate on MLS, say, oh, the quality's too bad, I hear you, I was one of those people too, but you honestly cannot compare MLS to European soccer, and from 2007 to 2017, that 10-year span, the league got better players. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's a retirement league, but now you see MLS signing a lot of young players from South America, and the league's just getting younger and younger, and you're seeing the aging European stars kind of get dwindled out of the league because now it's just, like I said, all South Americans taking over the league, it seems like.
I would say even in the last 5 years that, you look at these designated players and the average age of the designated players is getting younger and younger. I mean, Atlanta has picked, Atlanta, they're really on the up with getting these players. I mean, prime example, Miguel Almiron. No one had heard of him 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And he spends a couple years in Atlanta and gets sold for a record transfer fee to Newcastle. And now he's one of their best players. And you have Joseph Martinez, and then, you have a South American Player of the Year and Pity Martinez. And, it's all these guys and Pavone over at LA Galaxy. And I mean, you look at it, these players are even in the prime of their careers. Prime example, Carlos Vela. Carlos Vela is a player that 10 years ago probably in his prime would have never come to the MLS. And, people say, oh, well, he's taking it easy. He's destroying this league. He might be, but, he's only one player. But the quality of the player is getting better. Quality of the player is also getting younger. You're starting to see it become a more attractive option for players that even want to go back to Europe. Because if you can have, say, 2-3 years of continued success here, you can get sold back to Europe to a great club for a good chunk of money. So it's about that balance between getting the good young talent that make this league better, and also getting the money from these sales that ends up, being reinvested back through the league. And then that in turn gets better quality players and makes the league better.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, that's what we want to see. We want to see young players come in and then eventually get sold. I mean, nobody likes to see their team lose their best player, but, with that money, that means that's more resources going into your club. That's more money that you could use towards scouting, where you can go and find better players that nobody's ever heard of. And maybe you find a diamond in the rough, and then, like you said, and then the process just keeps going and going, and you keep signing those players, selling those players, and bringing more money in. But I want to get your thoughts on some of your favorite moments from last season, and don't say the first playoff win. We'll go over that in a little bit.
I would say probably one of my favorite memories from last year has to be the El Sino game against the Red Bulls in June. I mean, I remember that game, among other things, Andre didn't have a great year. I'm a forward and a goalie. I will be one to defend goalies at the most, but he didn't have a good season, and he didn't have a couple good moments. They go down 2-0, and Curtin brings on El Sino as the numbers say, the super sub. No one really has that ability, to change a game like that for such a short period of time. And next thing you know, it's 1-1. It's 2-1. It's 2-2. It's now 3-2 in the change of 15-20 minutes. And that last 15 minutes or so, the Red Bulls were trying to be on the front foot, but they couldn't get anything going. And that's when I remember thinking that this season was going to be different. That there was something about this team that seemed to have a fight, a push. And I think this year was definitely a step in the right direction. I think there's more to go, but you can at least say you can arguably say it was a pretty good season, compared to what we've had in the past as Union fans.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And real quick, that is one of the games I had was the 3-2 comeback against New York Red Bulls. Like you said, the El Sino game. But how about that energy in the River End? I mean, that place was rocking. When we saw El Sino warming up and everything, and then he eventually gets called onto the field and everything, everybody's just chanting his name, El Sino, El Sino. And I mean, the rest is history. I mean, that was one of the best nights I think that the stadium's seen in a very, very long time, and it was all due to El Sino.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember, as the game started to go on, the River End started like almost rocking, like, audibly shaking. And then that kind of got around to the rest of the stadium. And next thing you know, people from the River End were leading chants that are reverberating around the entire stadium. And I mean, I remember looking at my two friends that I have tickets with and just going, this is my fourth season as a season ticket holder. I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen it this loud, this, such a cohesive chant. And I'm like, this is what we've been, wanting for several years since the beginning. We've wanted this kind of unity, this kind of passion. And I mean, yeah, it was absolutely one of the most wild nights I think I can remember as a Union fan.
What about for a game 2 for you?
away at Atlanta. I mean, this is a point in the season where you got embarrassed by Toronto. You really didn't play well against Sporting KC. Marco gets a red card, for a very questionable call. You get suspended, and you were going in there. And Atlanta's, this big juggernaut. Yeah, they changed coaches from Tata to Frank de Boer, but they were still Atlanta. I mean, that's still, and this, I live in South Jersey, and actually Brendan Aronson's town in Medford. And to see this young 18-year-old kid go in there and leave Brad Guzan flat-footed as he scores his first career professional goal. Yeah, it was a 1-1 draw, but it was something that we're like, okay, maybe this, we have a kid here that is going to be something, given, a few years, that he already has the intangibles, he has the athleticism, but also this team seems like it believes, like it really wants to take hold and play as a cohesive unit. It was a bit of a rough stretch at the beginning of the season, but that game, as early as it was, definitely helped, at least to me, kind of say, okay, this season could be different.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I've talked about this in the past on the podcast where, you see in MLS, typically when teams go on the road, they're walking away in a defeat. And so to come away with a draw against a very, very tough Atlanta team, and like you said, Brendan Aronson, his first start for the club, an 18-year-old who's not the biggest guy whatsoever, but he looks like he's been playing for forever. I mean, there's a guy who got better as the season went on, and, that goal that he scored against Gusan, a player who has played for the men's national team, a player that, who's played over in England and everything. I mean, that had to be so, so huge for Brendan's confidence. And you saw it throughout the season. I mean, he kept getting more minutes and everything, and he eventually took the starting spot from Marco Fabian, which we'll get into Marco Fabian a little bit later. I've been saying, the 3-2 victory against Minnesota, that was a turning point for me where I started to believe in this team that, okay, yeah, we're for real this season. But, I mean, what better place to look than that Atlanta game? I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. Atlanta's a very, very good team. There's a reason why Atlanta won it all last season. It's why Atlanta went very far this season. And for us to go into their house and get a 1-1 draw in a very, very tough environment, I mean, what a great result for the guys. What about a third game for you, though?
I'm going to say the Dallas game. That was a game that, I mean, Dallas, when you face the Western Conference teams, you only face them once a season. So you get them every other year in your home turf. And we always have, Dallas has basically had our number a lot. And I remember that free kick goal early by Rito Ziegler. It was one of those like, Andre had no shot. I mean, that thing was curled perfectly. And I remember standing there because, it was always nice when, the other opposing team attacked first at the river end. It was like, oh boy, this game doesn't look pretty. And, they tied it and you're going, okay, maybe we'll get a draw. It's going to be an ugly game. And then again, Ilsinho does his magic. I mean, that little chip, I mean, that was perfectly weighted to where, but you see Bedoya slash that down, cut inside. And I mean, that was as nice of a shot as, you can expect from a guy. And that was, the stadium was, rocking. And because, those late winners, people say, oh, yeah, soccer's boring. Well, if you have a 93rd minute equalizer or game winner, there's nothing like it because as I say, at the death, it's hard to explain. It's just one of those, like, it gets your blood going and you get over the moon excited.
Yeah, it's like you can jump in the Delaware River and swim to Jersey and then swim back to Chester and everything just because the adrenaline's flowing in you. I mean, there's so many times where you're hoping that, okay, well, we can see some magic if your team's down. There's so many times that you don't get those moments. And so it's like anytime that you get the moment, whether they equalize or whether they win, I mean, you got to cherish that moment. And everybody in that stadium just left a happy camper. And Ali Bedoya had such a great season last season. And Ilsinho, I mean, what else can be said about Ilsinho? Ilsinho was the man last season. But one thing I do want to bring up, though, I've been asking all my guests on the podcast, what are their thoughts on the 4-year contract extension with Bimbo? So go ahead, Justin, give me your thoughts.
I'm not as big of a disproponent of it. I think the what actually makes me happier, and I think this is a different deal that compared to the previous contracts that must have been signed with Bimbo, is that they're going to allow the use of their other brand. So I don't necessarily think that Bimbo's going to be the main brand. Now, it might be on the new home jersey because the home jersey is the new change this year. But at the very least, the away, like on the other jerseys, you could see Sara Lee, you could see, Artisano, and I mean, there's a laundry list of brands that fall under the Bimbo umbrella. And I think they started to take a step in the right direction last season where they took away the white background on the Bimbo logo and tried to get it to fade a little bit more into the jersey. But I think, listen, a jersey sponsor is not the biggest detractor. People were claiming for Wawa or Yards or, any other local company. But, I mean, Bimbo is their main headquarters is right here. I really can't complain. I think the jersey sponsor is really not the biggest problem on for the team. And I think you're gonna try to get any money you can, and the jersey sponsorship is one way that teams are able to earn their money.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, I'll echo what everybody else has been saying is the one thing that concerns me is there hasn't been an announcement from the union saying how much that the jersey deal is going to be. So we saw when they first signed the deal, and then to the second year that they signed the deal, the money went down. And so a lot of people have been saying, well, I wonder if the union have taken less money now again for a second consecutive year. So if that is the case, then I would be a little bit concerned. But I do agree with you from changing the red and blue background to match the kit to now giving people an option on the away kit. I mean, they are listening to the fans. And, for the people that are, I'm never buying a Bimbo jersey or a Bimbo, now you have an option to buy the second kit. And I love the second kit. And so now the union, for those people that weren't going to buy kits in the past, well, now here's more money coming in. Now, granted, I know the team doesn't make money from the jersey sales. It's Adidas that the money goes to and everything. But still, that's going to be more people buying Philadelphia Union jerseys, wearing it around. That's more branding for the club. And that's not a bad thing, in my opinion. But I do want to move on, though, and get your thoughts on some news that broke Friday, which was, if you're familiar with basketball, which I think most people are, and specifically an NBA fan, Kevin Durant was spotted at the Union headquarters Friday the 20th with the Union owners and Jim Curtin and Kevin Durant's investors from his investment group, 35 Ventures. Now, we know it's been reported in the past that KD tried to buy stakes in DC United twice, but he was denied by the DC owners. The speculation now is that Kevin Durant is interested in becoming a part-time owner with Philadelphia Union. What are your thoughts on these rumors?
I think, when I first saw the tweet, I was actually on Friday, I was, had, my work office party, and I was kind of, starting that. And I looked at my phone as I'm leaving the office, and I'm getting, texts from people saying, I think KD was spotted at the Wharf building. And I'm thinking, first off, no way. Like, I know Kevin Durant's hurt this year. But what would he be doing in Chester? Like, just the sentencing alone, it doesn't sound like anything plausible. And then as I looked into it, and starting to see about, I read Pablo Amar's story about, him trying to buy DC United and getting denied and wanting to invest in an MLS club. And, people said, oh, well, what about NYCFC and the Red Bulls? Why would they why would they want someone to invest when NYCFC is backed by the Yankees and Man City, which is, that's billions of dollars right there. And the Red Bulls are backed by Red Bull. Like, that's a corporate contract. Like, that's several $1 million. Honestly, I would be all for it. I think, who knows what the percentage stake is because, you do have, Richie Graham as a small minority owner, and you have, I believe it's Leibowitz, the new minority owner.
Yep.
And I don't know what kind of a percentage that he would want to take. I can't imagine it's too big. I know James Harden did something similar with the group that owns both the Dynamo and the Houston Dash. I think the biggest thing, besides the inflow of money, would be just the image to say, hey, to players, hey, we got Kevin Durant as an owner, who knows? Because think about the connections that he has through his, through 35 Ventures, through just being an NBA player. He's players like that. Like the NBA is they're an international brand. And in China, LeBron is considered. I mean, he's like, he touches ground, and people love him. Like he's mobbed like a pop star. And to say, hey, we got a pretty damn good player who happens to be an owner. That's a big deal. It's like with the Sixers. Will Smith's an owner. How many players get to say, yeah, I play for a team that has one of the biggest action stars in the world as an owner. Be like, hey, I get to play. Kevin. I know who Kevin Durant is. Let me check out Philadelphia. And I think at the very least, it'll garner an image change, that the team is a lot more serious about being able to invest in the club itself. But two, I think it'll pull a lot more either casual fans or even just players to say, hey, Philadelphia seems like a good option. If that's all that happens, I'm perfectly okay with that, because some of these things like that, it just takes a small thing to help really boost a club.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, one, I don't think that it's going to be a big stake. So for people who think that Kevin Durant's going to become the majority owner, absolutely not. So, I mean, if he gets 10% in the club, okay, then that's something. I think maybe his stake, maybe it will help buy one DP. But I mean, the main thing I agree with you is his image. Everybody knows who Kevin Durant is. I know when I typed in Kevin Durant's name on Google, a picture of Ozil, Arsenal's Ozil, and Kevin Durant popped up. Now, I'm not saying I want Ozil at the club. I can save that debate for another day. I don't think Ozil's at his peak anymore. I think he's on a tremendous downfall. But like you said, everybody knows these basketball players. His image is so big, and that can help with recruitment. Like you said, if a player comes in and said, oh, yeah, this guy, Kevin Durant, he's part of the ownership at this club that I play for now. Yeah, let me go check it out in Philadelphia. There's no reason why Philadelphia shouldn't be getting big time players, because they're a top 5 market, and adding somebody like Kevin Durant in the ownership mix can only help more players come into the club. So I do think that it's a great idea, because you look at LAFC, they have like 20 different owners and everything. The more owners means the more money that's coming into the club, which means more money that the club is going to be willing to spend. And so if this is true, if Kevin Durant does become an owner, I'm all for it. But my last question for you in regards to this topic is, if Kevin Durant does become an owner, are you going to go to the team store and buy a 35 Durant Union jersey?
That is a viable question. I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I am still waiting for the new home jersey to get released, because I'm a sucker for kits. I definitely think. I mean, I've been buying at least the last couple of years the new jerseys, because they've been looking nice. So we'll see. I don't get too many jerseys customized. In fact, the only Union jersey I have that has a player's name on it is the jersey from the original season, and I got Connor Casey on it because he was a dude that he didn't take guff from anybody. Was always one of the most physical players in the field, but had a knack for getting those stoppage time headers. And so I don't get too many jerseys customized. So I don't know if I'd get a Kevin Durant jersey, but it definitely would be a thought.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I have no Union jerseys customized and everything. It's like, I always hate buying jerseys and then players leave and everything. And I feel like in MLS, like I said a little bit ago, I mean, I'd hate to buy the biggest player and everything, and then they're gone, and you're like, oh, well, I only got to enjoy this person for one season. And it's like, I saw a lot of people buy Marcus Fabian jerseys, which is great and everything, but it's like, do I want to be seen wearing a Marcus Fabian jersey when he had a so-so a 1-year season with the Union? Not really. But I know for a fact that Kevin Durant becomes an owner for the Union, we're going to see a lot of Kevin Durant Union 35 jerseys. So it's going to be neat to see and everything. And I do hope that Kevin is allowed to buy whatever percentage stake that he's interested in. But now I want to move on to what players you think are going to be back next season. I'm not going to go over the guaranteed contracts that the players we know are coming back. So I'll start with the players that are out of contract, which is Colin, El Senior, and Jamiro Monteiro, which we will leave Jamiro for a little bit later. So do you see Colin or El Senior coming back?
Well, El Senior, I know, was tendered an offer. I know it was a formal offer. I don't know the details. I haven't heard much since they tendered him the offer. And for Colin, I mean, you could really do worse for a veteran backup. I mean, he's a guy that's been playing the league for countless years. He won a title with Sporting KC. I mean, he knows what it takes in this league, and he was a great, mentor for Mackenzie and Elliott and Trusty last year. Yeah, you really could do worse. So I wouldn't be surprised if they brought him back, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they didn't bring him back. If they looked for another veteran backup. For me, it's really up in the air. Elsinho, I definitely see coming back for at least one more year. Colin, I say 50-50.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm 50-50 on both of them, and for people that are interested in my thoughts, just go back and listen to older episodes. What do you make of the trades of Fafa Picault to FC Dallas for $375,000, and then Auston Trusty to Colorado for $750,000?
Well, with Fafa, I think it was right for both the team and the player. Fafa's a winger by nature. They tried to pigeonhole him as a second striker. He did an admirable job, but he likes burning people down that wing and cutting in. And Dallas is in a traditional 4-2-3-1. I think he'll thrive there, and with him and Paxton Pomykal and a lot of the players that they have, Jesus Ferreira. I mean, they have a lot of good young guys. Hedges, Jesse Gonzalez. I mean, they have a good young core, so I think he'll fit right in as a nice veteran. So I think for both the player and the team, it was smart, and you got pretty good value for him. Trusty, I will also say it was good for both player and the team because, Trusty, I was always up and down with him. He showed promise, but he was always very liable for a very big mistake. And he was one of those players that, he'd have a good run of games and then he would, have that big mistake that would cost you 2 points. And I felt like he was always on the precipice of getting to that next level as a center back, but kept making those same mistakes. It just felt like he was hitting an impasse. And listen, Colorado has been building a good young core. They barely missed the playoffs after an awful start. I think that's perfect for him. Potentially him and, Wallace Abubakar would be a great center back pairing. And you have Keegan back there. Kai Kamara is an insanely dangerous striker. Again, I think it was good for both player and the team. And you stockpile a lot of this allocation money. And I'm sure they probably used some to help pay for the new signing and potentially new other signings. I mean, Tanner is showing that he is not afraid to make a move that's going to help the team. One, stockpile money, but two, also get the best out of, for everyone.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And let's go ahead and talk about the new signing since you brought it up. I talked about it last podcast with the Doopy brothers that it was rumored that the Philadelphia Union were going to sign 25-year-old defensive midfielder Jose Andres Martinez. It is official as of today, the 23rd. The Union have indeed signed our Harris replacement. He's a 25-year-old who comes from Venezuela. He played for his club Zulia FC, who he helped win I had it. Well, now I lost it, so I'm not going to bring it up since I don't have it anymore. He helped them win a competition over there. I forget the name of it.
Venezuelan Copa Libertadores.
Yep, there you go. Yep, and I was trying to solve for time, and yep, there it is in my notes. So thank you for that, Justin. My friend Jordan, he brought up, a little bit of a scouting report. He asked people over in Venezuela, scouts and journalists, what their thoughts were on Jose. And they said that, one, he's good enough for MLS, so that's always a plus. They said that moving to MLS can help him springboard into the national team with Venezuela. He is very, very fast. He likes to be physical. He's aggressive. He can play a good ball, but his main attributes are just winning the ball back and everything and just holding down the number 6 for it. And, that's something that a lot of fans got on Harris last season, where we know that he wasn't the best offensively, that, he was great at free kicks, he was great at set pieces, but liability-wise, defensively, was really, really big for Harris. And so now we get a player in here who's 25 years old, who's in the prime of his career, who's going to play for everything because he wants to represent his national team in Venezuela. We don't know the cost this transfer and everything, but I can't imagine it's no more than $300,000 and everything. And until we hear the team say otherwise, all we can do is speculate. But what are your thoughts on this signing, Justin?
I love his nickname. I mean, El Brujo, the sorcerer. That's just, honestly, that's really cool. That's going to get some chance going in the river end. But yeah, no, I took a look at some highlights. And like you said, he's a great Harris replacement in the fact that he's got that athleticism. I mean, I was watching the highlights, and he is not afraid to go into a challenge. He's going to stand up. He's not very tall. I think his official report is only listed at like 5'9". But yeah, he's athletic. He will win the ball, and he will move the ball quicker up the field. And we have the players to move quick on the counterattack. And honestly, I think, if that's all he brings, that'll be helpful because, Harris was great. Harris was more of an Andre Pirlo where he's not a traditional number 6, but he could lob a ball right over the top and behind the defense. But defensively, he didn't help. I mean, that puts a lot of pressure on the center backs. And when you have a young pairing of McKenzie and Elliott, I think they definitely could have used a little bit of help every now and then. And if Martinez can bring that kind of, help to give them that kind of stability, then you're not going to have to worry about some of these counterattacks where, the McKenzie and Elliott are caught in no man's land. And you have a guy that's he'll take the hard foul. He'll take, that foul 40 yards out and slow the play down. That's what you want out of a number 6 is a box-to-box, someone who's going to break up the play and move it forward. I mean, Diego Chara is one of the prime examples of a guy who is a destroyer. It's going to win the ball and going to move the ball up the field. So if this is what El Brujo can bring, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, we saw so many times last season where, I felt like Ali Bedoya could push up a little bit farther up the field, but there was times where he wasn't pushing up because of Harris's inabilities to play defense. I mean, we saw so many times where Harris would see the run coming. He would point to his teammate, whether it be Ray or McKenzie, to go track the runner while this guy just runs right back by Harris. And luckily, there was times where we didn't get beat by it, but then there certainly were times where it eventually did cost us. And if we can just get a player, like you said, that can play defensively and not think about scoring, not think about getting assists, which, I loved Harris for all of his hockey assists that he would get and his free kicks and everything, but we need a true defensive number 6, and I think we have that in Jose Andres Martinez. Now, the rumor I want to bring up, though, is, again, this happened Friday, I believe, last week. It started circulating on the internet. Czech Republic midfielder Jan Vandenholm is 22 years old. He plays for Czech side Bohemians 1905. And, I don't know much about this guy. There's not much for him if you type in his name, but he's a 22-year-old midfielder who can play on the left side or the right side. So he's more of an outside midfielder, which, I really can't see the Union signing an outside midfielder because it seems like they want to get rid of those players. They got rid of David Accam. Like we said, they got rid of Fafa. And the only one they really have on the roster, well, he's not even on the roster anymore, is El Sino, and he's the only one I see the Union making an exception for. There's a guy who, he's 22. He fits the bill that the Union want to get younger and everything, but his side want apparently $1 million for him, and I don't see the Union paying $1 million for a guy who plays out wide and everything when they don't use those players. And I know people are like, oh, he can play in the number 10 role. Well, he's 22. Brendan's 18, going to be 19. Do you want to take away playing time from Brendan, from a player that's just getting started with their career? Not really. And I think this is just a rumor and everything, but what are your thoughts on this? Do you see the Union signing a outside midfielder?
I mean, I remember when I first heard this rumor, and I was talking with my buddy Paul Catrino from the Views from the Bridge podcast, and we both said it just doesn't make any sense for a guy who's more of a winger. I mean, he could play the left side of the diamond in a 4-4-2, and if you moved Brendan up top, assuming I don't know the status of Jamiro, it seemed tough to get to see him coming. Martinez was a guy that it was a role that you needed. I really think they're going to start looking for either an attacking mid, or I've heard some rumors about potential right backs because I love Ray, but he's not much in terms of going forward, and I think Baiso is still very questionable because he's had a lot of injuries the last few years. So we'll see on that front. But yeah, I'm not going to put too much stock in that because it was really a one-off report. At least with Martinez, it was, we heard the rumor from the Venezuelan page, and then we started following the Union on Instagram, and there was some kind of it had a little bit more legs to the rumor. This one, I don't know. I don't see much to it, but we'll see. We'll see, especially once the new year hits.
Absolutely. I think, I'd be very shocked if the Union announced another signing before the new year. But hey, if they do, I'm all for it. But, we finally got a signing in that I think all fans can be happy about. And there's a player, nobody really knows about. Like, I know the video you're talking about, that's really all we've seen and everything. So it's like the Venezuelan Soccer League, it's so underground. There's not much on it and everything. And I'm looking forward to his debut with the Union. But you talked about Ray Gaddis, so I'm not going to ask you your thoughts on Ray Gaddis since you kind of already gave them. But what about Andre Blake? Do you think it's time to move on, or do you think he rebounds next season?
I will say that, as I said before, I am the biggest goalie defender in the world because as playing the position, I know how quickly you can become the hero to the villain. In that, that being said, Andre didn't have a good year last year. He seemed out of position on a few things. He had a few goals that really he should have had back, whether he came out sooner or played the angle better. I think if he wants to leave, I don't think he's going to leave at the beginning of the season because right now Jamaica finally did get into the top 50 in FIFA rankings, which was the biggest hiccup. I know for his national team teammate, Kamar Lawrence, who wanted to make a move to Europe last year. I think he was linked to like QPR and a few lower Premier League teams. I definitely could see Andre either moving mid-season or in the next offseason. I think he's going to stay only in the fact that he's going to want to have a better year because he's not going to want to leave on that note with the way it kind of ended. And, if he does leave, I mean, I still think they could get decent money for him, and I'd be comfortable with Freeze being the starter because he showed last year that he seems to have the angles right on a lot of things, and he seems to play everything pretty well, and he's a pretty athletic goalie. But yeah, I would be shocked if Andre was not on the roster come the first game against Dallas.
Yeah, I think Andre Blake will definitely be here for next season. And then the 2021 season, I believe that's when Andre Blake's contract is up. So I tried to look it up and everything by the time you were talking, but I wasn't fast enough. So I do believe I remember seeing Andre Blake's contracts up after the 2020 season. So I don't think the Union are going to sign him. I think the time for the Union to sell Andre Blake was when he won Goalkeeper of the Year in MLS a few years back. And then I remember he ran into some visa issues and whatnot to go over to some European teams and everything. And ultimately he stayed and everything. But I think, Andre Blake's going to want to just have a big year this season. He's going to be motivated to play for a new contract, whether that's with the Union or whether it's with someplace else. So it's like, I think last season was a one-off with Andre. We've seen Andre perform in the past and everything, so I wouldn't get too upset about it. I mean, it was concerning because going into the season, goalkeeper was supposed to be the spot that all fans felt comfortable with, and then we just saw blunder after blunder from Andre Blake. But I do ultimately think he'll rebound back from the terrible season he had. But speaking of being back, do you see the Union re-signing Jamiro Monteiro?
See, I'm not sure. It seemed a lot of back and forth initially with, after they extended his loan. And then there was that talk of, Tanner saying, well, I don't think we'll be able to bring him back. And then since then, nothing. I mean, it's been dead quiet on all fronts. I think they're going to make every effort to bring him back. Now, the question is, one, does he want to be here? Two, what's the price going to be? Because I don't think salary will be a giant issue. I really think it's going to be transfer because I know his value last time I checked, I think it was around $3.5 million because that's about what Mets paid for him. So, truth be told, I'm not sure. I know he wants to go back to Europe, but I think he might need another year to firmly establish that he could. I would love for him to come back, but if it's too much, then I think they can either sign someone cheaper or just stick Brendan at the top of that diamond.
Yeah, I think, I've been saying I think the Union, one, have the money for the transfer fee. I think it's going to be around $2 to $3 million. But again, that's around half of the Union's budget, what it's been and everything. So do you waste half of your budget on a player, or do you sign 5 $1 million players? And I'm stealing that quote from Jay Sugarman and Joe Tanzi's article because that's what Jay Sugarman said. So it's like, don't give that quote if you're not going to sign 5 $1 million players. But, the last player I want to bring up is Marco Fabian. Do you agree that it was the right decision not to pick up Marco's option for the 2020 season?
Absolutely. I said when they signed him, when I looked at the contract, one, he was a free transfer. And the only thing was that if they had sold him, it would have been, I think Frankfurt would have taken 5%. But it really was a low risk, high reward signing because you're taking a guy that has shown, I mean, when he played at Chivas, he was amazing. Now, he had a good first year at Frankfurt. The final year, he had a bit of injury problems. He still had some good flashes, but didn't have much. I think, when he started, he had the red card, had the injury, and I think it kind of derailed at the start. He showed flashes, obviously the game-winning goal against the Red Bulls and the goal against Chicago was really nice. But, I mean, he got beat pretty handily by Aronson, who definitely was a little rougher on the edges. I think he'll mold that on definitely next year. But yeah, I mean, it was, two team options, whether they wanted to pick it up. So really, the Union didn't have to gamble much because if they didn't like what they saw in the first season, they could cut their losses, and they did. So really, I think it was a smart decision by the team.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And like you alluded to, talking about Marco Fabian, that playoff game. Now, I want to get your thoughts before I ask you some final questions. What are your thoughts from the first playoff win against the New Jersey Pink Owls?
Honestly, it was wild. I mean, first off, it was an ugly, weather. I mean, it was pouring rain. I remember tailgating with my friends and going, if this isn't a sign of, the Union's first home playoff game in a while, I don't know what is. And that first goal, I mean, man, that's one, Andre wants to have back. That was not a great angle. It was one that he had hands on, and then from there, he misjudges a corner kick and it goes in. And then he misjudges, he has a collision with his own center back. It's 3-0 at the half. And you're going, oh my God, we're going to get embarrassed in a nationally televised home playoff game. This is ugly. Bedoya's goal was nice, but it was like, boy, you're still down 2 goals at the half. I don't feel comfortable about this. And next thing you know, they claw it back. It's Jack Elliott gets it. You're like, okay, 3-2. I can start to feel a little bit better. And then when Fafa's thunderous header, and you're going. I mean, I remember going full on ballistic, going, oh my God, we finally did it. We've clawed it back. So many chances right at the end, so close to winning that game before extra time, and then whistle blows on stoppage time. Goes, well, shit, we're going to extra time, as if my heart can't go take any more stress. And that, Marco's goal, I mean, it initially from where we were, you couldn't really see the deflection, but you all of a sudden you see it take that loop, and man, once I hit the underside of the crossbar and went down, I think I joke with my friends. I think I blacked out because I started jumping up and down and pure hysteria. I remember not really I remember opening my eyes again, and the kickoff was so just going full on ballistic. I don't think I've ever celebrated like that. I have a lot of good memories of in there in the River End. That's probably up there with one of the greatest memories is seeing the first home playoff win.
Yeah, and sticking with the River End, what are your thoughts just on the overall atmosphere from the River End this season?
I think it got better. As a team struggles, you're always going to have fans complain, people not really into it. But as the season went on, I definitely think it got better and people got more cohesive. I still think there's a little bit of a divide in the River End, but I try to stay out of all the silly politics of it and just, chant and enjoy the game. And, I have a good group of people, in my section around us that I've become pretty friendly with. So, I'm happy with the River End and where I am. But yeah, overall, I think it definitely last season was one of the loudest I've definitely heard the River End.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think the atmosphere as the season built and everything, it was unbelievable. And then near the end of the season, when we started getting more of the stadium to do the sha-la-la chant, I was like, man, this place can really become a fortress. This place can become electric if we could bring this every single game and everything. And I mean, going back, that playoff game, I'll watch that video at least once a day and everything just to get those feelings and everything again, because that's moment that neither one of us will forget ever. And just anybody else that was at the game, that's a moment that you're going to be able to say, yeah, I was there for the first playoff win against our rivals, even though, people want to say it's not really a rivalry. But now we kind of give them a reason to start a rivalry with the Union. But, my last question I want to ask you, what's a typical match day look like for you? What's your routine? Are you superstitious? Anything that you believe that will help the Union win a game?
I wouldn't say I'm overly superstitious, but I'd also be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit. I have, I don't have too much during the day, especially if it's like, say, normal 7:30 start time. I'll start the day, early with, a cup of coffee. Like to usually if there's a Premier League game on, I'll watch the first game and just kind of hang out, take the dog for a walk. And then I start to get ready, usually around, if it's a 7:30 game, I'll leave my house today around 3:30 to pick up one of my friends. And then we'll stop at Wawa. I usually grab either a 24-ounce cup of coffee or an iced coffee, depending on the weather. And we'll get to our tailgate spot usually by like 5:15 or so. And we're always in the back corner of Lot C. We have our big group of friends, and we just kind of shoot the shit and just talk about the game until the lineups come out. And then usually about a half hour before the game, we'll take that last beer as our walking beer. We'll walk towards the stadium and, get ready, go to the bathroom, and then take our spot. And we're usually there about, 5 to 10 minutes before the teams come out. So it's become a pretty solid routine. We usually like to get there like 2 hours of tailgating in. And, I usually tend to wear ironically, I'm wearing the same shirt that I normally wear underneath my jersey. So a little superstitious, but I just kind of, go with it. It's just more for the fun experience of being with my friends and enjoying the atmosphere. And that's at this point, that's, it's become a nice habit. It's also a nice way to, to spend time with your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. But I just want to ask you, I know I said last question, but where can people find you on social media?
So I am on Facebook, Justin Friedberg. On Twitter, I am at UnionNut26. Most of the time, you'll see me retweeting soccer stuff, any kind of, stats, videos. Normally, most of my stuff is sports, and occasionally, some stuff about, some shows that I watched, like, this Canadian show, Letterkenny. I'm on Instagram at GoofyGoober26, and that's really it. I mean, like I said, if you see me on Twitter, I'm normally just kind of chatting it up about soccer, especially with, how tight knit Union Twitter can be. We try to have at least, there's at least one conversation a day about, God knows whatever it is, whatever the hot topic of the day is. But yeah, that's about it. It's usually where I'm found.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I agree. I mean, I love Union Twitter. It's a really, really close-knit community, and everybody has different opinions and everything. But at the end of the day, we just want to see what's best for the Union. And if you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, you can follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Free Kick Pod. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcast by searching The Free Kick. Or if that doesn't come up, then type in The Free Kick, Todd Lewis, and you'll be sure to find the podcast. And don't forget, we have a brand new website called thefreekickpodcast.com. You can find a little bit about myself, the podcast, and that's where you can find other episodes too if it doesn't come up by searching The Free Kick and Todd Lewis. But thank you so much, Justin, for joining me today. I had a blast talking all things Union with you, and it's about time that the Union made a signing.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to talk with Union Soccer.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you're more than welcome to come back on in the future and everything. And I look forward to hanging out and catching up with you and just everybody else I've had on this podcast next season.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. And with that said, my name is Todd, and this is The Free Kick Podcast.